In Japan, Kanji Yakutani is a passionate pharmacist who works day and night to find cures for diseases, so he can save people from incurable diseases. He was motivated by the memory of his sister who died of a tumor. At that time doctors could not save her, so he decided to develop a cure for the disease by himself. However, his obsession with work eventually led to his untimely death, just after he completed his final research and go to sleep. But that wasn't the end of Kanji's story. He woke up in an alternate world in an unfamiliar room as a young boy, and a young maid who was looking after him calls him Pharma. In confusion he opens the window and sees the new world. He learns that 1 week ago, Pharma was struck by lightning, and at the same time he died in his previous life. The little maid introduces herself as Charlotte or Lot. While removing the bandages from his body, she noticed some marks on his shoulder. He tells they are burns marks from lighting, but she claims that the marks are a blessing from the medical god, Panactheos, and start praying. She then explains to him that he belongs to the de Médicis family, who served as doctors to the royal family. In his family, his father Bruno, his mother, a little sister, and an older brother. Pharma learns that magic existed in this world as divine art that only novel can use. She tells if he is unable to use his divine arts, he would be expelled from the family. Pharma tries to use magic, and is easily able to use the magic by creating the water on his first attempt. With his newfound powers, he can summon all the elements using his knowledge with one hand, and can easily erase them with the other. He then goes to the library and learns about this new world's medical knowledge and history, before he meets his family at dinner, where his father Bruno asks him some questions to test his knowledge. Pharma meets his tutor Eleanor, who suspects him for his unusual manner, but he convinces her, saying he has amnesia after the incident. She teaches him about the 5 elements of the divine arts: earth, air, fire, water, and none, and also mentioned that someone who could summon all the elements would be considered unnatural. She then shows him how to use the divine arts. She asks him to do the same as she did. However, when he uses his divine art, he created more water than he could control. Eleanor is shocked and confused about what just happened, so asks him to measure his power, and discovered the truth that his magical capacity has increased almost to infinity. Afterward, at the end of the day, she also discovers that he possesses the divine eye, which can detect all illnesses and injuries, and his body no longer casts a shadow. Fearing Pharma is a monster, Eleanor fled. The next day, Pharma learns that Ellen quit her job, so he pays a visit to her home, but she was terrified of him, believing him to be one of the Panactheos, the gods who ruled over the divine arts. Pharma tells he came to talk and means no harm. He pleaded with Ellen to return to being his tutor, but promised to leave her alone if she wished. Before he leaves he gives her some flowers as thanks for being his teacher, and also apologizes for scaring her. After he leaves, Ellen rethinks that the Panactheos are benevolent beings, so decides to help Pharma. Later, Ellen returned to being Pharma's teacher again. After that, Pharma began practicing with his divine eye, diagnosing and creating treatments for the de Médicis household servants. Pharma, with his previous world knowledge, creates medicine for everyone according to their illness. He first gives his medicine to Lot, who was pleased to have it, and then both of them deliver these medicines to other workers. Everyone thanks him for his kindness. However, when Lot explained that the de Médicis only served royalty and medicines from commoner doctors were expensive, Pharma was determined to make medicine available to all social classes. The next morning, Pharma's resolve was put to the test when he learns that his sister, Blanche, contracted chickenpox. He used his knowledge of Earth to create a treatment. Bruno instructed everyone to not enter Blanche's room, but Pharma secretly enters and gives her proper medicine. But knowing that no one in this world knew of these techniques, he made Blanche promise to keep it a secret. Bruno is surprised at Blanche's quick recovery, but doesn't seem suspicious. Later, Pharma created a pocket-sized Leeuwenhoek microscope. Just then Bruno calls him and takes him to the Empress's palace. They arrive at the palace, and the head court physician tells Bruno that the Empress's condition is not good. Bruno immediately starts Empress Elizabeth's treatment. He takes some of her blood samples, and after analyzing them with his experience and limited medical knowledge of this world, Bruno concluded that her condition will soon be fatal. However, Pharma refuses to accept this, and secretly used his divine eye, and diagnosed Elizabeth with White Death. He comes forward and makes a bold claim that he can save Elizabeth and asks her permission to treat her. Seeing his determination, she allows him to treat her. Pharma locks himself inside the room and starts making the medicine, but Bruno was trying to stop. Bruno finally breaks the door and enters. He angrily denied Pharma's claim, saying, "There is no medicine exists to cure White Death." But Pharma revealed that Bruno was also suffering from White Death in its early stages. Bruno attacked Pharma, but Pharma stopped him with an ice wall, revealing his powers. After seeing marks on his shoulders and his medical knowledge, Bruno is convinced that the Panactheos had sent Pharma medicinal revelations. Afterward, Pharma presents his new medicine to Elizabeth, but before he gives her medicine, using his pocket microscope, he shows her the cause of her disease: tiny creatures in her lungs. Pharma proved to the court physicians that Elizabeth had tiny creatures in her lungs, and explained the existence of bacteria. Convinced by Pharma's explanation, Elizabeth agreed to take his medicine for the required 6 months. Returning home, Bruno looked at Pharma and re-examined his own approach to medicine and his failings as a parent. Pharma asked Bruno to continue teaching him, as he still had much to learn, and offers him medicine for tuberculosis. Surprised by Pharma's request, Bruno accepted that Pharma was still his son and took the medicine. Pharma's treatment of Elizabeth is hailed as a miracle, and Pharma intends to make his medicine available for everyone. But Bruno warns, his knowledge could be seen as heresy, and someone might have deliberately infected Elizabeth. Pharma rejects his claim, saying that would be impossible without knowledge. Pharma visits the palace to check on Elizabeth, but before that, Noah, a page in Elizabeth's court, informs him that Elizabeth intends to reward him. He reveals that he wants to open a pharmacy that treated both nobles and commoners. Meanwhile, after taking the medicine, Elizabeth struggled with doubts about her fitness to rule. However, Pharma convinces her she is still needed by her family and the people of the country, who adore her and need her as their ruler. With Pharma's help, Elizabeth regained her confidence. Months later, Elizabeth fully recovered and asks Bruno to bring Pharma to the award ceremony. Bruno and Pharma arrive at the ceremony. At the ceremony, Bruno is awarded new lands by Elizabeth for serving the royal family. Pharma is promoted to royal pharmacist, and Elizabeth also allows him to open a pharmacy in the capital. Later, Elizabeth sends the Empire's finest workers to Pharma and orders them immediately start working on his pharmacy. Pharma designs the layout of his ideal pharmacy with this. He is finally able to open his ideal pharmacy, but due to some miscommunications, the pharmacy ended up being named Parallel World Pharmacy. And as soon as the pharmacy opened, troubles began to brew. Viren, head of the Sain Fleuve Pharmacist Guild, shows up. He attempts to undermine Pharma, and is furious to learn that despite being a noble's shop, his medicines will be cheap enough for commoners. But before Viren could cause any trouble, Ellen scared him away. Charlotte requests Pharma to help run the pharmacy, so he hired her as an errand girl, but he still needed someone to manage accounts and paperwork. Later, coincidentally, Bruno retires his own accountant Cedric, who was no longer able to walk, and Pharma hires Cedric while promising to treat his legs. Pharma asks Bruno's permission, who allows him to hire Cedric, and also to help Pharma get started. Bruno gives him a fortune in gold, but Pharma soon realized that Bruno deliberately retired Cedric to allow Pharma to hire him, and is grateful. It's been a month since Pharma opened his pharmacy, but is struggling to attract customers to the new pharmacy. People gather outside, but never enter the shop. He has only one regular customer, a sailor named Jean, purchasing his scurvy-curing sweets. Later, Bruno and Pharma's mother Beatrice show up in disguises, but are easily recognized by Pharma. Beatrice tells that they come to take a look at his store, and Bruno praises Pharma for his store. To boast sales, Beatrice suggests selling cosmetics, but Bruno is against it, claiming that ladies who use face powder invariably die young. Pharma is impressed that Bruno is aware since primitive makeup often contains toxic lead. Suddenly, Pharma receives a customer, a noble lady who is suffering from anemia. After seeing her condition and using his divine eye, he finds some cuts on her hand. He diagnoses her with anemia caused by bloodletting, a primitive procedure to make skin paler. He then takes her to his pharmacy and gives her medicine. She reveals that she wants pale white skin for someone she likes and refuses to give up. Cedric reveals that she is Chloe Marquis' daughter, so he decides to help her. 1 week later, Chloe returns to Pharma's pharmacy to receive the makeup he promised. Pharma creates a non-toxic makeup that moisturizes and prevents sunburn. Chloe applies the makeup and is thrilled with. This cosmetics soon leads to a flood of customers desperate for affordable, high-quality makeup. When Chloe comes to buy again, everything is sold out, so Chloe offers to finance a separate shop focused solely on cosmetics, and he accepts her offer. She hires females who lost their jobs due to having children. Pharma institutes policies of maternity leave and earns ladies instant loyalty. Later, Elizabeth is entranced by the new lip gloss, especially made for her, and passes a law to ban the selling of lead-based makeup, and to slightly raise the price of his medicines to avoid putting commoner pharmacists out of business. Pharma and his family visit Bruno's new lands, the Duchy of Marseilles, which includes ports and farmland. Pharma, Blanche, and Charlotte go to the beach, and Blanche and Charlotte request Pharma to let them play in the water, which he allows them. Soon, Ellen also joins them. At the beach, Pharma reminisces about visiting the beach in Japan with his sister Kai, before her illness was discovered, and he failed to keep his promise. However, the day takes a dark turn when Blanche is swept away by a rip current. Pharma rushes to save her, but is unable to keep up with the water flow. Don't want to lose his sister, and experience the same pain again in this world too. In his desperation to save her, Pharma unleashes a power that splits the ocean, and carries Blanche to safety along the ocean floor. Ellen is shocked as Pharma's power didn't move the water, he deleted it from existence. Pharma takes Blanche to the beach, and Ellen reveals that Pharma's power is no ordinary one. It's a negative attribute divine art that deletes water from existence, which is considered impossible. Unfortunately, a witness reports the Holy Diocese, and orders are issued to locate the boy with no shadow. 2 priests begin watching Pharma's every move at his pharmacy. The next day, a horse and carriage break into the pharmacy, destroying their medicines and filling the shop with deep mud. Bruno suspects that someone is targeting the de Médicis family. Pharma arrives to see the situation. Pharma is touched when Jean and his crew, grateful for Pharma's anti-scurvy sweets, arrive to help clean up the pharmacy, along with other shop owners. However, a woman arrives claiming her father is unwell. Pharma goes with her, but she lures Pharma to a deserted field, where he is confronted by a diocese inquisitor. Grand Inquisitor Solomon and his fellow priests accuse Pharma of being an evil spirit in human guise, but he rejects their accusations and claims he is a normal human. However, they don't want to listen to him. They try to bind Pharma with anti-evil barriers, but when it didn't work, they continue their attack in a set formation. Pharma finally retaliates and easily wards off their magical assaults, while pleading to them that he means no harm to anyone. Once they see the mark of Panactheos on him, they interpret him as an incarnation of their own deity and desist. Solomon tries to commit suicide to atone for his sin, raising his wand against Panactheos, but Pharma stops him and decides to treat his leg, which was severely broken during the attack. Despite being a pharmacist, he performs emergency surgery to mend the Inquisitor's leg, and asks them to keep this secret. Several months later, Solomon, fully recovered and promoted to bishop, visits Pharma and takes a tour of the pharmacy. Solomon assures Pharma that he will keep his existence secret from the diocese, in gratitude for saving his life. He also brings several gifts, including a set of pastries, and a divine staff named the Panakrabdos, which can only be used by Pharma. Before he leaves, he gives Pharma a talisman that suppresses Pharma's divine art aura, allowing him to cast a shadow. With the threat by the diocese gone, and while walking in the city he sees people ask other stores for his medicine, but learns guild prevents them from publicly selling. Pharma decides to found a new guild with other medicine stores. The same night, Marie, daughter of Pierre, falls gravely ill. Enraged, Viren forbids his guild members from having anything to do with Pharma's shop. It revealed Viren was the one behind the horse guard attack at Pharma's pharmacy. Pierre is also a member of his guild, but before this just go back, Pierre tries to find a doctor who will help him, but fails until Pharma invites them. He first hesitates but has no other choice but to accept his offer. Pharma then takes them to his pharmacy. Pierre is surprised to see his pharmacy, and impressed with the Pharma's medical knowledge, and how well he examines and treats his patients, whether it's children or adults. Pharma diagnoses and concludes Marie is infected with influenza. Pierre is completely satisfied with Pharma's excellent care, and even more shocked with affordable medicine prices, despite their lower class. Returning home, after taking medicine, Marie is sound asleep, and Pierre realizes that Pharma is the pinnacle of what a pharmacist should be, and compared to him, he is just an amateur. But he is stuck obeying the guild for the sake of his family. Back to the present, Viren is further enraged when he learns that Pharma is protected by Elizabeth and Salomon, and when asks Pierre's opinion, Pierre admits he took Marie to Pharma, and suggests others should also visit. Viren reveals that one of his children died, because a noble doctor refused to treat him, so he will never trust Pharma. Pierre tells Saint Fleuve should be learning from Pharma, not despising him. By doing this, Pierre is expelled from the guild, his pharmacist license revoked, and his shop destroyed. But upon learning this, Pharma invites Pierre to join the compounding pharmacy guild he recently set up with Elizabeth's permission, allowing Pierre to continue working as a pharmacist. With the support of his wife and daughter, Pierre learns Pharma's diagnostic techniques and stocks only Pharma's advanced medicines, before opening his new shop, the Dawn Pharmacy, and happy to see a huge crowd is waiting for his shop to open. Bruno had a dream of one of his former peers and friend, Camus de Sade, who was a brilliant pharmacist and genius, but was banished for conducting abominable medical experiments on human subjects. At the breakfast, when Bruno worries about his dream, a letter arrives from his son Paul. Bruno asks Pharma to come to his office. Bruno tells Pharma about Saint Fleuve Fair, and informs that the letter is contained information about a strange, deadly epidemic originating from Ponte Island, from which wares are imported that may contaminate the fair at the imperial capital, as Paul mentioned in his letter about the early symptoms of diseases and death of infected peoples. Pharma suspect and has Bruno to ask Paul to send them copies of the microscopic sample. However, Empress Elizabeth reviews the positive impacts of parallel world pharmacy on public health, and therefore the empire's prosperity, and decided to continue assisting Pharma's endeavors. The next morning, Pharma tells Ellen about the epidemic and upcoming danger at Saint Fleuve Fair. Just then, microscope sample from Pal arrives, and as Pharma suspects, his fear becomes reality. Pharma and Ellen then send fellow students and pharmacists before them to initiate medical precautions in Marser. Then they meet Bruno. Pharma identifies the disease as the Black Death, and Bruno is also unable to identify it from old books, and reveals it happened 200 years ago. Pharma tells him that he already made medicine and delivered it to other stores. They then meet Elizabeth. Knowing the situation, Elizabeth immediately initiate quarantine and medical precautions, along with hygiene methods. After establishing the quarantine centers in the capital and providing them with all the necessary equipment and medicine, Ellen and Pharma depart for Marser, where the wares are supposed to arrive. But meanwhile, Camus de Sade has returned to the capital, cloaked in an ominous dark aura. Pharma and Ellen arrived in Marser for port inspection, and Pharma is determined to prevent the disease. They meet with other students to know the current situation. They immediately began inspecting the merchant ships that are impatiently waiting to make landfall. When the ship owner starts showing resistance and refuses to cooperate, so Saint Fleuve's naval forces come for Pharma's assistance, whose leader is Commodore Jean-Alain Gabin, Pharma's old regular for scurvy cure. He scares the merchants' ships, warning them if they refuse to cooperate with Pharma's inspection, Navy will shrink their ships into the ocean. Later, news reached them that a village named Lestat was struck by the plague after a ship illegally docked there to avoid the quarantine, and now the deaths in the village increasing rapidly. Pharma decides to go there alone at once, but Ellen objects. She tries to tell him that it will be too dangerous to go there, but he left Marser in her command. Pharma departs and riding the Panak Rabdos, Pharma arrives in Lestat. Upon arriving at the village, he finds villagers running away from the village. He tries to stop them from leaving the village to prevent the plague to spread. But they didn't listen to him, and even further they label him an evil spirit and prepare to fight. Then Pharma uses his magic to create an ice wall to surround the whole area, preventing the plague to spread, and reveals himself, and tells them that he is a royal pharmacist. With his rank as a royal pharmacist and the help of local health workers, Pharma rallies the survivors and organizes treatment measures in the town. Meanwhile, at the ports, Commodore Gabin and his crew find the ship, but is not responding to their signals, so they confirm it renegade ship after it is found with all hands dead. He orders his men to sink the ship into the sea. Back to Lestat, after initial preparations are completed, Pharma enters the section in which the most critical cases have been isolated. In the School of Pharmacy, there is a shortage of people to help contain the plague. Professor Ruth Gaspard offers her help, but nobody wants to associate with her, because she is about to retire in a year. Professor Ruth Gaspard is a specialist in the taxonomy of fungi and microorganism, which is not considered a medical field in the school until Bruno calls her. Meanwhile, Pharma and his team, along with the diocese members, work tirelessly to stop the outbreak of the deadly Black Death. Back at pharmacy school, Professor Ruth thinks Bruno calls to make her retirement earlier, but Bruno clears the misunderstanding. Showing Pharma's research, he asks to find the microorganisms to extract the medicine for the Black Death from it. It can be produced without using divine arts. Ruth tells she already has those microorganisms. Bruno immediately announces the funds for her lab. While returning from Lestat, Pharma sees Diocese intercepts several crew members from the rogue ship who have made landfall with some of their cargo, and Pharma learns that not only did they bring some rare white squirrels from Ponte, but also 5 holy knights from Netherland, who boarded in the midst of the ship's voyage. Connecting dots from Elizabeth's illness, he suspects someone is plotting. Bruno also informs Elizabeth about this. She increases the security of the capital's gates. The next morning, their theory is validated when the wanted knights suddenly breach the capital's gates and release a huge number of white squirrels into the city. Emergency bells start ringing in the city. Elizabeth is informed about sudden night attacks from Netherland, and the Black Death continues to ravage the city. As they discuss the crisis, Bruno tells it could be planned by someone who must have knowledge of plagues and all kind of illness. He suspects Camus is behind it all, and tells them he was once his best friend and fellow pharmacist in the schools of pharmacy, but was banished and his divine art sealed away by Diocese Inquisitor, after he got caught conducting experiments on human subjects. City guards try to stop the Holy Knights, but had a hard time dealing with them. However, just then Bishop Salomon and his fellow priest from the temple arrive and stop the enemy knights with the magic. Pharma returns to the capital. Unfortunately, the squirrels carrying the plague can fly, causing the infection to spread rapidly throughout the city. He meets with his father, while the knight confirms Camus's involvement, who killed the King of Netherland, and is using their resources to take revenge on Saint Fleuve for his banishment. But they didn't know about the plague, they were just following orders to save their people. Pharma senses an evil presence coming from his pharmacy, and immediately rushes toward it. Unfortunately, the situation takes a turn for the worse when Camus infiltrates Parallel World Pharmacy, and stabs Cedric and Lot with a poison dagger. Pharma and Bruno arrive but are too late. They enter the pharmacy and find Charlotte and Cedric lying on the floor. Bruno decides to fight Camus and asks Pharma to treat the injured. While Bruno keeps Camus busy, Pharma diagnoses and purges the poison from his friends. When Camus overcomes Bruno, Pharma concludes Camus is incurable. He then punches him out of the window, fights back, and employs his divine art. He uses Panak Rabdo's power to destroy Camus and the demonic power which possessed him. Following this, the outbreak is swiftly quelled. Afterward, everyone deals with the remaining cases, and Pharma's successes inspire a rapid advancement in medical research. A month later, Elizabeth announces the capital is free from the Black Death. The Saint Fleuve festival proceeds as planned, and in the end, Parallel World Pharmacy once again opens for business. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more videos like this. If you have any suggestions or questions, feel free to leave a comment below. Until next time, take care.